Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this exclusive members hot topic at lunch. Today, we're going to be discussing Armed Forces Pension Scheme 15 benefits. I'll be presenting. My name's Richard Sanders. I'm one of the pension consultants, and my sturdy assistant, Andy Keane, also a pension consultant, will be dealing with any of the questions in the chat. So on the housekeeping, please, could I ask you, all your mics are turned off anyway, but keep your questions in the chat, and Andy will do his best to answer as we go along, and there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. What I would say at this point, before I go any further, it's no coincidence, but both Andy and myself, the McLeod Remedy, which we're basically going to be talking about with the 15 scheme, this affects both Andy and I. So not only is it we're passing on our professional observations, but we've also got a personal experience in this because it affects us as well. Okay, the agenda for lunchtime is going to be the following. To start off with, I'll just do a bit of remind and revise or educate on the McLeod Remedy, a bit of background into that and who it affects, and then we'll go on to the hot topic, go through some observations which we've picked up since October, and some considerations for you to think about. What happens at state pension age, and a little bit on dependents benefits. And as I said before, there will be ample time for questions throughout in the chat, and then at the end in the chat for the wider audience. The McLeod Remedy. For those of you that aren't aware, just to keep you up to speed, there was cases put in by the judges and the fire service, their pension schemes based on all of the public sector moving on to the new 2015 schemes at the time. And it was based on certain individuals who had transitional protection did not have to move along onto that new scheme with other people. Anyway, it went through the courts and it was in their favour. It's called the McLeod case because the primary judge was McLeod. And we're now in a period of resolution because the case was won. So what does that actually mean? It means that all personnel that are either in service, both on or before the 31st of March 2012, and on or after the 1st of April 15, with less than a 5-year gap in service, for those people who had a break in service, then your relevant pensionable service will be reviewed. And all of those personnel, after review that are deemed to be in scope, will be able to make a decision onto their pension entitlements for the remedy period. And the remedy period is the 1st of April 2015 through to the 31st of March 2022. Within this now, we've got two cohorts and what we class as the immediate and the deferred choice cohort. Now, the audience, you are going to be made up of one or the other, immediate or deferred. A little bit more on that as we go along. An immediate choice will be provided to eligible members, i.e. they're in scope, who have left the armed forces between the 1st of April 15 and the 1st of October 2023, with their pension and payments, including EDPs and any of those that have dependents payments as well. The deferred choice, this is really for those individuals that are serving. They will be provided, those individuals, those are eligible at serving members who are to leave the armed forces after the 1st of October 2023, with, again, deferred pension rights for the remedy period. When are you going to be given the information to allow you to decide what to do with the McLeod Remedy implementation period? Well, as I said, there's two choices. First and foremost, the immediate choice. You will be sent something called a remediable service statement, a little bit more on that later on, by the 1st of April 2025. To date, we're not aware that any of the immediate choice cohort have been given one of these remedial service statements. The deferred choice individuals, i.e. those people who are serving, In theory, and I'll speak about that a little bit more in a minute, 9 months before your benefits are due to be paid, i.e. 9 months before you are due to leave, if you're getting eligible benefits straight away, you'll be given a remediable service statement. Now, the reason why I said in theory before, you will appreciate that the implementation started on the 1st of October last year, and it's still, I wouldn't say it's in its infancy, but it's still gaining traction. So in the future, I'd expect this time next year, then that 9 months will be adhered to. But up until then, there are still playing a little bit of catch up. But that said, we are aware of members who are leaving in September who have received their remediable service statement prior to them leaving. So Veterans UK are doing an outstanding job there. So what is the remediable service statement? So as I said, those who are in scope, you'll receive this statement. What it basically does, and it gives you all the details you require for your remedy choices, i.e. what benefits you could get if you took your legacy pension scheme in the remedy period, or what benefits you would get if you didn't take your legacy scheme and you took the Armed Forces Pension Scheme 15 scheme for the remedy period. Just a little bit of point to note here. On the remediable service statements, there are added information for example, those individuals who have had an annual allowance tax bill and they've opted to take scheme pays. That will be annotated on the remediable service statement. I'm going to go into any detail of that, just want to explain it to you. Also, there is a slight holdback on the pension sharing order. So this has been dealt with in slightly slower time. It's by no fault of anybody, and it affects the whole of the public sector. They're still waiting to establish how the calculations are going to be resolved. Right, what I'd like to do is just sort of give you a little bit of a flavour. And first of all, we'll talk about the immediate choice cohort and what your RSS elections options are. And as I said before, the RSS will provide your figures that are tailored to you and you only. Those people in the immediate choice, i.e. you've already left and you're waiting, you had left on something that's called your original benefits. And those original benefits are basically your legacy benefits from the start of your pensionable service up until the 31st of March 15. And then from the 1st of April 15 on the 15 scheme all the way through to exit. The legacy schemes there, just to give you an example, obviously 75 and the Armed Forces Pension Scheme 05 scheme, and then clearly the reserves equivalent as well. Just a point to note, as I mentioned about Andy and myself, we are both in this immediate cohort collective, and we left before the 1st of October 2023. So we are also waiting for our options. When you get your options in your remediable service statement, which gives you your options, then let's just call this your second option, on the understanding that your first option is the original benefits. Your second option will be classed as the alternative benefits, and that will allow you to then move from the current scheme that you're on, your original benefits, to your legacy benefits from the start of your pensionable service to exit. And now some of you might have left before the 31st of March 22. So if you left 2016, then you will get your legacy benefits all the way up to there. When your RSS comes in, again, as I mentioned before, scheme pays figures for those it affects will be provided at the end of the RSS. Now, all of the individuals that are on this presentation, you are all members. So send your remediable service statement into us here in the Forces Pension Society, and we will send it back to you with a very detailed explanation, and especially highlighting what your primary objectives are and what you want to achieve between the two options for when you exit. Looking at the other cohort, the deferred choice, those individuals that are still serving, point to note now that automatically from the 1st of October 2023, you would have rolled back onto your legacy pension scheme for the remedy period. So those that are in service now, for example, if you started on the 75 scheme for eligibility point in 2020, in 2000, sorry, then you'd be on that all the way up to the 31st of March 2022. And then from the 1st of April 22, everybody is earning pension accrual under the 15 scheme. Again, the RSS will provide your figures with exclusive to you, and similar to the immediate choice, but actually in reverse. Your option 1 is your default setting is your legacy benefits from the start of your pensionable service all the way through to the 31st of March 2022, and then from the 1st of April 2022 to exit on the 15 scheme. Your option 2 is then going to be the Armed Forces Pension Scheme 15 benefits, and that's similar to how it was prior to the remedy period, and I'll just explain that in a couple of slides in a minute. Again, scheme pays figures will be provided at the end of the RSS, and once again, please send your RSS into us for explanation, and especially to highlight your primary objectives. Now, just in sort of picture illustration, what does that actually mean? So I'm going to use this example here as an OR7 from the immediate choice. They started their service exactly at the age of 18, and they've already left. So the benefits they're receiving, classed as their original benefits, are based on the first 15 years on their legacy pension scheme, 75, or if they took offer to transfer on the 05, up until the 1st of April 15, when they automatically got put onto the McLeod remedy, which has now been reversed, but they automatically got put onto the 15 scheme. So, and they exited at 40, so that's how it looks. Okay. You will have the option for those people who have already left to exchange and elect to choose the alternative benefits. And that means they're using this example of an OR7, and I've kept it nice and neat. So he's done exactly 22 years. He could exchange and elect to have the benefits all on their legacy pension scheme. Go into the deferred choice example, and I'm going to use an OF3 here now, and this is somebody who's still in service and they get out in a couple of weeks' time on the 1st of April. They joined exactly at the age of 21, and their legacy benefits are as it's annotated there, all the way through from the point that they're eligible for their pension in the 75 scheme, all the way through until the 31st of March 22, and that's 32 years. And then the last 2 years, everybody is on the 15 scheme. Now, that's their default setting, and their RSS will show that version in figures and also show you the Armed Forces Pension Scheme 15 benefits and what those figures mean. So this individual will also have the option to elect from their legacy and move on to the 15 scheme benefits for the remedy period. So 32 years and 2 years on 15, or 25 years legacy and 9 years on 15. More on that a little bit later. Just for a little bit of context and information, really. So to date, from the 1st of October, those individuals that have exited the armed forces with pension benefits have received their remediable service statement. 63% have remained on the legacy benefits, and 37% have switched onto the armed forces 15 benefits for the remedy period. That's just a little bit of insight and interest for you. Okay, moving on to the crux of the presentation today, and really the hot topic that I wanted to get over. I thought it was very useful to give you that background information to start off with. A lot of the information that we're going to share with you now, the observations and considerations, have come to us as pension consultants whilst we're dealing with hundreds of cases each week, either on the telephone or via email. So this is all picked up via experience. I just wanted to pass over this information to you just to add a bit of context. So some of the observations that we pick up at the moment is, when can I move back to my legacy scheme? That's one of the most common observations. The MOD would never introduce a new pension scheme if it was any better. I want as much money as I can get at exit. I don't intend to live to state pension age, so I want as much money as I can now. And my friends have told me that the legacy scheme is better. So I thought I'd just share you those key, because honestly, people who phone up and when the email comes through, that is their headline consideration or thought as to what needs to happen. I'm not saying any of that information, well, some of that information is completely incorrect, but some of the information is actually fairly valid. Let's move on to the considerations then, and we're going to focus on the 15 scheme, but again, we want to put everything into context. I've put down there, and I'm going to say exactly as I put it down, do not be blindsided by the assumption that the legacy benefits are better. In many cases, the legacy benefits would probably be better. However, you are not doing yourself any favours if you don't first and foremost look at your benefits in their totality. Just to look at the decision based on the largest benefit at exit. And I'm not trying to change your mind on here. I'm just trying to, and our view here in the Forces Pension Society is we just need to give you all the information so you can make the correct decision. If the decision you come to is still you having the larger at exit, then that's absolutely your right and understandable. That is not what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to put everything into context and to make sure you understand the totality of your benefits. What I would say as a consideration and as an observation, that many members are very surprised as to how close both the options are, especially at exit. Now, there's always going to be a clear winner, defined clear, but there will always be a winner. And again, it comes down to what you and your family want when you exit and how you take your benefits. So I just want to illustrate this slightly, if I may. This is extracted from, not from a live one, but from some of the feedback that you get from the Forces Pension Society, where we will highlight to you, amongst many other things, what all your options are when you come to take your benefits at exit. And clearly, this is based on the RSS and what it looks like if you take your legacy, or what it looks like if you take your Armed Forces Pension Scheme 15 benefits. Okay. So in this example, and I think this is a fair shout across the board, and I'm using this example as the legacy being the 75 scheme, is most members want to take the maximum tax-free lump sum at exit. So I'm going to focus on the majority of those members. And as I said to you before, there's other options you can look at there that will be presented to you, but just want to use this of what the majority go with. So in this instance here, we have got on option 1 legacy benefits, and this is an example of an OR7. Don't worry about the figures. This is exclusive to this individual, that when they exit their legacy pension benefits with a second commutation, they could get 68,207 tax-free money, and that would mean their pension income benefits made up of 75 and the 15 EDP is 12,592 versus the equivalent option if they took the 15 benefits of 67,303 lump sum tax free and 11,210. So that is the sort of information you will get from us to help you, to highlight to you and assist you in making your best decision for you and your family when you leave. What I would say, and before I start this, I am not an advocate. I'm not trying to sell. I am not highlighting the Armed Forces Pension Scheme 15. For me personally, and me personally only, it's an outstanding scheme that for my benefits, it works better for me. But that is my journey and not yours. But in this example here, what I'd just like to highlight to you is I don't believe enough emphasis is put on how good the scheme actually is. So just to remind you a little bit there, it's one of the best public sector schemes that's out there. It's got a very high accrual rate, and on the public sector, I think there's only one other scheme which is better than the Armed Forces Pension Scheme 15. And that accrual rate is based on overall career average. So let's have a look at this. Let's go back to our example of our OF3 who joined at 21 and he's leaving in a couple of weeks' time, what that would mean as career average for the OF3. And it doesn't matter what rank you are, I'm just using this to highlight it to you. So you can see there, the 15 scheme, you've got a couple of years if they stayed on the legacy benefits, or 9 years if they stayed or went to their armed forces pension scheme 15 benefits. Now, the career average for that 9 years in this example is as an OF3. So what does that really mean? So it's at a higher salary. If you're at a higher salary, then therefore 1/47th of whatever salary pensionable salary you get will go into your accrual for the 15 scheme. Now, I would like to highlight at this point, this is a similar example to me personally. Take the ranks out of the equation, but the years serviced in service. For me, what I accrued since April 15 in the 15 scheme gives me a far better return at exit and throughout my pension life on the 15 scheme benefits. And that's my example and my example only, but just to put that into a little bit of context. Still looking at how good the scheme is, you also have, and people disregard this, you also have facility to take your Armed Forces Pension Scheme 15 early from age 55. Now, however, if you do take it early, then you'll be taking it actuarially reduced, which basically means that, depending on what year you take it, if 55th, 56th, 57th, all the way up to your state pension age, that depends on the factor of how much it's reduced by. But in theory, because you're taking that pension benefit early, then the jam is being spread over many more years. It's the same amount of money in theory, but you're receiving it for 10, 12 years longer. So that's why it's actuarially reduced. But that is definitely a benefit and something that some members don't quite comprehend. Another option that's available to you is something called the pension commencement lump sum. In theory, this is just commutation. I will speak about this in a couple of slides time, and then also dependence benefits. I shall also go through this in a little bit more detail in a couple of slides time. Right, best of both schemes. We're still looking through the lens of the 15 scheme benefits against the legacy. And as I said to you before, in many cases, the legacy benefits at exit will probably be the more beneficial. However, and again, I'll use my example. I gave you a quick summary of it before. I'm in a position where I can access the best of both schemes. And what do I mean by that? So I've had enough time, and let's go back to this example of this OF3. I've had enough time in the 75 scheme, and in this example, 25 years, from joining up until the 1st of April 15, to make my legacy in this 175 scheme most beneficial, supported by excellent accrual from 2015 in the 15 scheme. So the point I'm trying to make here is where everybody says clearly the 75 or the 05 is better than the 15 scheme, that is not the case at all, and it needs to be looked completely differently and not in isolation. If you started the 75 off at the same time as you started the 15, the 75 would win as soon as you at exit with the better benefits, but the 15 would win when you got to when the 15 scheme came in at state pension age. So you have to look at it completely differently. You haven't started these schemes at the same time, and you've got a foot in both the schemes, so please look at it differently. I sort of brushed over it there in reality, but legacy benefits are possibly better at exit. However, the 15 scheme benefits will be better at retirement, because that's the way that the scheme is set up to take into account the way that modern society is these days. Now, I mentioned it before, this is absolutely your choice. Nobody is trying to convince you otherwise. We do manage to, I wouldn't say, well, talk people around when they come to take what we would perceive here at the Forces Pension Society a indifferent decision and what we would take. And then when we explain it to them, as I'm going through this presentation, they're like, okay, I've got it. They go away and think about it and come back and possibly change their mind. Okay. But the point I'm really trying to make is please, you must understand what you are giving up, i.e. if you take your legacy pension scheme benefits, that's absolutely, that's your absolute right. All we're asking is for you to understand what you're giving up before you make a decision. If the decision hasn't changed, not a problem. But at least here at the Forces Pension Society, we have given you the correct information so that you can make the best decision for you and your family straight away. Right, still on the considerations, I'd just like to talk a little bit about tax. Now, I'm going to go back to our example, the box before from our OR7 and the benefits that they've got, okay, at exit. So on his RSS, his headline benefits are legacy 68,202 tax-free money, 12,592 income, or 67,303 tax-free money and 11,210 income. It goes without saying the legacy benefits in both examples are higher than the Armed Forces Pension Scheme 15 benefits. But I just want to weave this in with how tax needs to be taken into consideration. Now, our soon to be retired veteran OR7 has got a new job, and that salary is £45,000. So if you add, and this is a consideration as to what, if you know what your next employment is going to be. If you add the two together, they come up with those headline figures there. Okay. What I'd like you to focus in on the tax. Now, clearly, and as I said to you before, the legacy benefits are far more, are more in figures than the 15 scheme benefits, but you need to take the tax into consideration. In this example, there's £1,382 of less income, which would then reduce the tax liability for this individual. And at 40%, which it would be, the real difference is actually £829. So if this individual took the 15 scheme benefits, then they would be £829 worse off in income. Now that suits for some people because they want to keep the tax liability down. But in reality, that £829, if you divide it into your monthly income, that means £69 less per month if you elect for the 15 scheme benefits. And in a couple of slides, I'm going to explain to you something that could be a worthy payoff of taking £69 less and taking the 15 benefits. And this is where I'll come on to what happens at state pension age. And you have to trust me on this. The amount of people who disregard or don't understand what happens at state pension age is quite alarming. So I really, and we're talking about some very senior people, and there's some big numbers involved, and they don't quite realise this is what happens, and it should be taken as a consideration before you make your election choices. Whether you change your mind or not, that's up to you and to your family as it suits. Okay, so what happens? So at state pension age, your 15 scheme early departure payment stops, and I'll show you an illustration in a minute, and your 15 scheme pension starts, obviously alongside your legacy pension scheme. Now it stops at state pension age as long as you haven't already taken your early payment of your pension from age 55 that's actuarially reduced. The pension commencement lump sum, you are now entitled to exchange part of your 15 scheme pension to generate a tax-free lump sum on the commencement of that pension. The clue is in the title. What it does do, it reduces your 15 scheme pension for life. But what I would say here, and again, something people don't also take into consideration, is at state pension age, you are also, as long as you're qualified eligible, you're also going to be in receipt of your government state pension. So that's additional income that you should look in totality. So, and again, I'm going to go to examples in a minute, but what am I really talking about? So our OR7 decided that he was going to go for the 15 scheme benefits. And in doing so, that gave him £43,873 of maximum commutation at state pension age, and would then make his income at state pension age 16,135. So just to go through that, to just highlight how that actually works. So at state pension age, at exit, this individual took the 15 scheme benefits. So 67,303, 11,210 income at exit. The only real thing that happens is at 55, because we've already established is taking the maximum lump sum, so it took resettlement commutation. So that portion at age 55, resettlement commutation is ended, and that would be increased. I've left it at the figure of what is original pension because we don't know what the CPI is going to be, but on the understanding those figures, let's just keep to today's rates. At state pension age and made up of originally the 11,210 or the 12,534, within that was the 2063 EDP. That stops, and that's replaced by the 15 pension, and the value of that in this case is 9,320, which then gives this individual at state pension age, without doing anything, and the reason why I say possible income, because I've got some more to come on to, possible income at this point between the 75 and the 15 pension, £19,719. However, as we mentioned before, at the point when your pension comes in, you apply for it, your 15 pension, you can apply for commutation, your pension commencement lump sum. In this example, you get £43,873, and that's the maximum. You can actually take less, but that's the maximum they could take. And what that then means is that reduces, by taking that 43,000, that would reduce the original 15 pension of 9,320 down to 5,664. And that would then give this individual at state pension age income benefits from his armed forces pension of 16,135 plus the £43,873 of tax-free money in their back pocket. Okay, I did mention a little bit on dependents benefits. Just to make you aware, if you're not already, then a dependents pension is payable on your death to either your eligible widower, civil partner, and or eligible children. And I just want to go through and highlight the subtle differences. Again, it's a consideration to make you aware of. Now, I will tell you a story on this. I was talking to one of the members and his wives and explaining this scenario we're going through now. And when I'd said to them that on the 15 scheme, that those pensional benefits are a higher proportion, all I could hear was his good lady wife say, well, of course, we're going to choose that one, aren't we, darling? So this is just to give you an example of the differences between a older scheme, which is the 75 scheme, and the modern schemes as far as dependents benefits are concerned under the 05 and the 15 scheme. So 75, you must be married or in a civil partnership, and then the other schemes, marriage is irrelevant. As I mentioned before, there's a slightly higher proportion in the 05 or the 15. 50% of your 75 scheme is classed as a dependent benefit for those that are eligible, but the equivalent is 62.5 in the other two schemes. If you've had resettlement commutation, then that is ignored in the 75 scheme. There was one slight anomaly in the 15 scheme, that if your dependent is 12 years younger than you, then it is adjusted downwards to take into account that individual would be living for far longer. Pension increases are activated straight away, and it's payable to the dependent for life. There's also the access to eligible children. Slightly different for the 75, so they must have been born before you retired or within 9 months of retirement. But under the other schemes, then parents' marriage is irrelevant. There's an age limit. It's all classed as educational. So if that individual is still in educational needs, then they would be classed as an eligible child. And again, the proportion, in theory, the proportion is fairly similar. Basically, on the 75, the other 50% of your pension, then 25% would go to each child, but only at a maximum of 25% per child. And the remaining 37.5% on the other schemes is pretty similar, but only a maximum of 25% to each child. And these child benefits are only payable whilst that child is eligible as described. Okay, near the end before we go to a few questions, but I just wanted to give a summary of the considerations. This is probably the biggest recommendation I would give, and that is that your benefits are completely unique to you and nobody else. It's your journey. Nobody will have a similar benefits to you. It's all about you, and it's also all your choice. All we ask is that you understand the totality of your benefits, because we are talking about a lot of money for the rest of your life and the rest of your dependents' lives as well. Please factor in, if known, your next employment income. And I'm just going to give you one final last story there. I did mention them before, but I had an individual who, when they were leaving and we were discussing his RSS, in theory, the benefits at exit, i.e. the legacy benefits, outweighed the 15 scheme benefits. But his opening line was, I want to have the lowest source of income because of my next job. And the lowest source of income for benefits was the 15 scheme benefits. And that's what he chose. And when he realized the benefits that came with it, then that made him even happier. But he was motivated by ensuring that his taxable income was as low as it possibly could because of his next employment. Please make sure that you make the best decision for now and for the future, for you and for your family. And clearly, the Forces Pension Society, we're here to guide you through this process. Now, I'm aware there's been a few questions going on in the background, but this is the point now where we can open it up to the floor if there's any more. How's everything going there, Andy, with the questions?
Right. Yeah, not too bad. Quite busy, as you might expect. I'm just going to go back to where's the question now? It's for Steve. So yes, I think for your regular service period, you'll get an RSS, but if you then joined the part-time volunteer reserves in October 2020 to July 2024, the only scheme available to part-time reserves is the 15 scheme. So you won't get a choice to change that because that's the only scheme available for part-time reservists who joined in 2020. Am I correct, Richard?
Yep, that's absolutely correct. It's one of those considerations and confusions that those people that are going into any form of reserve service think about. Once you've ended your regular service, then, as Andy just said, then from that point you are earning under the 15 scheme. So you know, it's a separate period of service as far as pension accrual is concerned.
That's not the same, obviously, for a full-time reserve service, where the remedy period would offer the choice between AFPS 05 or AFPS 15, but part-time volunteers are only able to receive AFPS 15. Okay, we've got loads more questions now. Can you see that one from Jason there, Richard, about the contracted out?
Slight separate under my HMRC notice. I have a cope of. Where is this cope? So, right, Jason. What I would like you to do, and I'm not trying to brush this off the shoulders, there's quite a complex response for this. As you're all members, could you please submit that as a question? There is when you go and have a look, what you see as the cope is not actually reflective, and it won't be reflected on any of your benefits or future benefits. But to explain that, please, like I say, it's quite complex. Could you send that question in to us and we'll give you a very detailed response? Thank you, Jason.
That's the second request that Jason's going to be sending to us in the near future.
All right, okay.
Because I've already told him to come back.
All right, okay.
Polly, what happens if your option change would have meant a lower income and thus lower tax on a second income? Can we get that back? I suppose if you were to make the decision to change your pension scheme to lower your pension benefits, then what we think, I'm not 100% sure why anyone would do that, but if they were to, and it would have changed the tax position at the time, then I think it's possible to go back to Veterans UK and ask them for a summary of the pension payments, and then you can take that to HMRC and ask them to revisit your tax position.
I think on that one, Polly, if I may, Polly, I'm assuming you're part of the immediate choice cohorts, and your RSS, clearly you're on the 15 scheme benefits version if you've already left in the cohort, because you're on this presentation. It will show you what the overpayment or underpayment would be if you chose to elect the opposite, the alternative benefits, including a little bit of interest either for and against, but a lot of the information would be available. But as Andy said there might be a little bit of churn to resolve with the taxman before you get back to level footing.
Okay, so we've got a question from Charles, and he says, are the MOD expected to hold to the 2025 RSS issue dates? They appear to be running out of time. I share your thoughts, but as it currently stands, Veterans UK are repeatedly assuring the members that everyone will receive an RSS by the 1st of April 2025. So that's what we have to follow for now. Another question there, how long would the Forces Pension Society take to process the RSS once we send it through for your guidance? Well, we are able to turn these around reasonably quickly, and the best way to send that to us so it doesn't get lost in the general inquiries inbox, which is quite large, as you may well imagine. We have a separate inbox for remediable service statements, and the way that it arrives in that particular inbox is if you submit that question through the website using the Submit a Question feature. And in that Submit a Question feature, there's a list of things you can ask questions about, and one of them is RSS explanation. So if you click on that and then scan and then upload your RSS into it, it comes to us very quickly, and without making promises, we are able to turn that round within 48 hours as it currently stands. Paul is asking about how will this affect a medical discharge payment? Well, in exactly the same way as it does under a regular. If you've left already and you've had a medical discharge, you've received a certain amount of pension benefits, and the remediable service statement will detail the alternative pension benefits if you were to change your position, and it will tell you any under or overpayments following that decision. Oh yeah, there's a few people asked this, Richard, whether or not this has been recorded.
Yes, yes. Sorry, I should have said that at the beginning. It's being recorded and it will be on the members' website in the near future. There might need to be a bit of editing because I've been playing around, and when I went to go into practice, it started recording automatically. So, but yeah, in theory, it is being recorded and it will be available for a period of time on the members' website. So please watch that space.
Do the new allowance as announced by the Chancellor make a difference to the lump sum allowance? I think what this individual is referring to, Richard, is the new guidance that we're currently trying to work through at the moment, the lump sum allowance. You might be referring to the LTA, which has now been abolished, but there is now a lump sum allowance, and I think it's in the region of 268,000 over your lifetime in terms of tax-free lump sums. Again, this is very complicated, and without understanding any of your circumstances, you would need to submit this question to us so we can get an understanding about what you've already received, etc., and then provide you with some guidance in terms of what you might need to do. It will affect very few people, because most people don't expect to receive the nearly £750,000 in lump sum over their lifetime. But if you are fortunate enough to do that, then it might affect you.
Just on that, Andy, if I may, as Andy said, there is a new process that is still being built, and it's not going to be available until after the 6th of April into the new tax year. It's being updated on a weekly basis by the Treasury. So we are staying on top of it as much as we can, and it will be an area which will be advertised on the members' website as and when we know the information to pass on to you. But as Andy said there, please, Dave, can you send in your specifics just so we can analyse them and take it from there? Okay.
John is saying he's thinking about purchasing added pension on 15. Is it sensible to wait until my RSS, or will this be protected? Yes. If you make added contributions to your 15 scheme pension now, because we're outside the remedy period, then that will be protected. For service personnel who paid into the 15 scheme during the remedy period, they're going to receive their contributions back and then have a choice of what they do with it, either reinvest it into the 15 scheme, potentially invest it into their legacy pension scheme, or just keep the money. But again, if you've had that email or you've received some money in your bank, then you might need to come to us to ask more specific questions. Will the pension calculator be amended to allow those anticipating an RSS to do some pre-receipt homework? Not really sure if you're a veteran or not, but I did cover this further up in a similar question. If you're currently serving, the pension calculator does provide the remedy comparison figures. If you're a veteran, you can't use the pension calculator, and I don't think there's any plans to make that available for veterans. You'll need to wait for the RSS to come. I appreciate it will be nice to have an idea about what the differences will be, but ultimately you can't make that decision anyway until you receive the RSS, and you will have 1 year, if you're immediate choice, to make that decision. So there doesn't seem to be any immediate rush, although I do appreciate your frustration. And I think that's it, Richard, so far. There was one question, and it was from someone who asked, how long will it take veterans to turn around the decision once they've received it? My sense is that, along with other pension benefits payment timeframes, I think it will be 30 working days.
Yeah, so Andy, I'll speak about my, I left on the 13th of the month. That was my final day. So in theory, they started processing on the 14th. And by the 15th of the following month, being my first pension payment, 15 is my pension date. And a week before that, I'd got the lump sum. The process is really, really slick, and you have to respect the process as well. Nobody's trying to hold anything back from you, and actually veterans are very good when they come back if they need to communicate any anomalies that they might come across, which doesn't happen that often, to be fair. But you would expect within 30 working days to have your lump sum and your first pension payments straight away.
Question here from Debbie. So you joined in 1987, and obviously you had transitional protection. So you stayed on 75 till the 31st of March 2022. Then you went into the 15 scheme. You left the regulars in July 2023 and then went into FTRS. Does this mean I'll get 3 sets of pension? Well, what you'll get is an RSS relating to your first period of regular service, and you will have the option to take the 15 scheme for the remedy period. So your first part of your service, your regular service, will still be 75 and 15. Your FTRS, you join that after the end of the remedy period, which will be the 2015 scheme, and there won't be any option to change that. It'll just be 15 scheme.
Yeah, and then obviously, Debbie, if you, I'm not too sure how old you are, but if you stay in service until you're 60 in FTRS, then when you exit, one of the benefits that's the normal retirement age for the 15 scheme, is you can receive all your 15 benefits at that point at age 60. So the stuff that you got from regular plus what you've accrued since you've been in FTRS, that would all come as a oneer.
Interestingly, it doesn't necessarily have to be FTRS service either. So if you do run out of FTRS contract before you reach 60, and there's an opportunity to join the 15 scheme by being in part-time volunteer reserve, that will have the same effect.
Excellent.
No more questions.
Excellent,
yeah.
Andy. Thank you very much for your churning out in the background. I could see everything popping up, but it was focused on delivery. I hope that members' benefit has been of some use to you. Like I said, this will be put on the website if you want to take it all in again. Hopefully, not listen to my dulcet tones, but at least understand the text that's on there. And you know where we are if you need us.